Hello everybody, great to see you. Thank you for joining me today. I'm just going to do a few quick designs for you with mainly flowers, all from the garden and foliage. I'm going to start with this lovely box, and I've just put some floral foam inside in a dish. The lid is propped open with a barbecue stick, so we can see what we're doing. Don't want the lid closed, you won't be able to see the flowers. So we'll put the foliage in first. I've got quite an assortment. There's a couple of beautiful fatsia. This is fatsia spider's web. It's a lovely foliage to grow. Slightly tender. It will need a bit of shelter in the winter, or just cover it with a bit of fleece to protect it from the frost. But it is hardy, but not really hardy. Okay, so a couple of those tumbling down the side like that. Then I'm going to put one or two pieces of bolota. It's lovely soft foliage. Well, it's actually a ground cover plant. It flowers. You have pink flowers on here, but at the moment it's all lovely and sort of this soft velvety green colour. And it will grow in full sun actually, so it's quite handy this hot weather we've been having. And it doesn't matter if you forget to water it, it's pretty robust. So a few of those trailing out to the side. Do like the stems, it's very easy, very nice to arrange with. The stems are almost as soft as pipe cleaners. So just a group of those coming out to the side there. I've also got one or two begonia leaves, begonia cordifolia. I don't know what variety this is. There are many varieties of begonia, and this one does tend to grow quite large. These are the medium-sized leaves from the shrub, but it will grow ginormous. Okay, that's one about there. Okay. I've also got one or two pieces of this lovely variegated foliage. I'm just going to confirm with my gardener friend. Is it Photinia? Photinia, that's right. Just checking. Photinia, it is a Photinia. And it does actually have pink growing tips, which they have actually faded in the sun, but they were quite pink a few weeks ago, but all the sunshine, they've gone variegated, but they're absolutely beautiful. So just one or two of those in, to recess those in. They can be a bit scratchy to arrange with. They've got very fine thorns around the side, a bit jagged looking. I just love the colour and the texture of those. And it just sort of lightens up the design. The other bit of foliage I've got, this is a little piece of Weigelia, variegated. Don't need much, I've only got one little spray, so that will go in. I think if you can get a nice variety of foliage in your design to begin with, it makes it much more interesting. Don't want too much dark foliage in there. If it's all dark green foliage, it does make the design look quite dull, but something nice and bright to lift it. Okay, let's get some flowers in. We'll put these lovely roses in first. One or two David Austin roses. I'm afraid I don't know the variety of this one. It was labelled, and the blackbirds have attacked the labels. I put in those copper tags that you push into the ground, and they've dug them out. Where they've gone, I don't know, so I can't remember the name of this beautiful rose. Perhaps you can, if you know, and those of you who know me, you can email me and tell me it's so and so, and I'll say, of course it is, I knew that. Let's turn that round for you. See how the variegated foliage makes that look much more bright and colourful. I'm going to put in another rose. There's one here, so a little tint of orange in there, and apricot and peach. Bear in mind we've got oranges and peach and apricot on the container. So tuck a little bit of that through. This is a climbing rose. Again, don't know the variety. This came from a friend's garden. So a little bit peeking through there. Those two colours look super together. We've also got a few stems of Alchemilla mollis to put in. This is also homegrown. This grows like a weed, if any of you grow it, and it quite likes the sun. But you must remember to give it a water occasionally, because the leaves will wilt a bit. And it's just bringing out the colours. The lime green always makes the colours you put with it appear much brighter. See what a difference the lime green makes. I've also got one or two flowers of buddleia. I borrowed this from next door. I promised to put them back when I've finished with the arrangement. Beautiful. And we'll have those trailing through. Just the odd one or two tumbling down, like so. That's beautiful. Can you smell that? Let's put that on. There we go. And I might just tuck one about here, and have one peeking out the back. Okay. This isn't the sort of design that's going to last weeks and weeks. It's a garden design for the moment, just to cheer everybody up. And of course, I'm going to put some of these in. This is phlox, homegrown phlox. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. You do have to watch them, they do tend to get mildew. So you will have to keep them sprayed to keep the mildew off. But they're beautiful. Let's tuck one up. Just have a quick look. Perhaps one hanging down the bottom. So always allow yourself plenty of foam to get your stems into. Don't skimp on your floral foam, and if you can, as much as you can, use the eco foam. There we go. Right, just checking it now. I may put another piece of Alchemilla in. Just seen a gap. There. That's brilliant. And I think I'm going to tuck in something here. Spare roses. Beautiful. Let's tuck one in about there. Like that. Maybe one out the side. Buds. Have got a few buds. You may find a couple of buds work better than a full bloom. There we are. Just a quick check. I think a little bit of foliage there just to complete the design. I've got another piece of the super variegated Petunia. This one's still got a bit of pink on the end. Peeking through there. So I think I'm going to leave that as that. I don't want it to look too full and too jumbled. So that completes my first design for you. Thank you. My next design is in this lovely stand I've made. It's got a wire frame underneath. We've got a dish of floral foam on the top, and I've just decorated it with little cushions I've made from scraps of material, so they're all stuffed with wadding and glued on with an electric glue gun, and it just gives a bit of movement and some extra texture. It gives a different dimension to the stand. So we're going to put a few leaves in to begin with. I've got one or two begonias. I've just cut these down. They were quite large, so that's quite fine, absolutely fine to cut your begonias down. Tuck in a couple of those to start with. Angle them downwards. A couple down there. I'll just turn that around for you to see. I've also got one or two more of these beautiful begonias. This is Tubby Andrews. This is a variegated variety, and again I've trimmed these round because they were a bit eaten round the edge. So we'll just have one or two of those in also. Like so. Perhaps overlapping a little bit. Angle those downwards. Turn that round for you to see. I'm also going to put in these lovely Formium leaves, Formium tenax. This is Yellow Wave. I've just looped around the tops and fastened them with a staple. I don't know if you can see that up there, little staple through. And we're going to put these through to give some movement into the design and to create some enclosed spaces. There we go. One at the top. Just angle that one down slightly. Top one about there. And bring that line through. So one or two coming down the bottom. Like so. And perhaps one about there. Okay, just turn that round for you to see. So it's creating a diagonal line through the design. I've also got one or two stems of Eleagnus Quicksilver, which is a beautiful silvery foliage, and it's also deciduous. There's not many, well, it is the only Eleagnus that's deciduous. I'm going to bring that through, following this diagonal line. And it's quite a reflective leaf actually. You can see it catching the light from the spotlights here. Bring that one through there. Turn that round a bit. And a shorter piece in there, like so. Always tidy up as you go. Try not to work in the mess. We have another foliage. This is my mystery foliage today. This came from a friend's garden, and a friend forgot what it's called. She said, "I'll phone you when I remember." It might be 3 o'clock in the morning when I remember what it is, but it's a super variegated foliage, and it is holding up really well in the hot weather. So we're going to put some of that in. We want some nice robust foliage, something we can rely on. Perhaps you may recognise it. Put some in the back. Nice clump there we can put in. Okay. Turn that round for you to see how it's coming along. I'm just going to put one or two pieces in the back, so I don't want you to see just bare foam, so we'll tidy that up a little bit. Also, it will help to balance it. If all the weight of your design is in the front, quite lightly it will tip over. It's So you need to balance it out. There, better. That noise, by the way, is the wind. It's very stormy today. And here's another beautiful flower. We're going to put in this. Well, we know this as bottle brush. I'm not sure of its botanical name. And this is it in bud, and this is it in flower. And we again follow this line through, this diagonal line. Fantastic. This design had to practice quite a lot to get the weight right, because being a one-legged stand, the shape of a question mark, got to get it balanced right, so it could wobble over. I mean, we don't want that to happen. And we are really limited to the amount of flowers we can put in, so it'll make it too weighty. One or two over the back. That's a bit taller one. Actually, tuck it down there, that's better. Better in there. Some of the smaller pieces in there. Okay. One or two down the bottom here. So everything's radiating from this imaginary central point. Leaves quite a space, so we do need quite a large flower to fill the space. So I have got some beautiful stargazer lilies, which will be absolutely ideal, and they're the perfect colour for this stand. So I'm just going to fuse these in. I've taken the lily pollen stamens out so we don't get it over ourselves. It will stain your clothes, it will stain your fingers yellow. And I must remind you that lily pollen is poisonous to cats. There we go. So next time somebody comes to visit, comes with dinner, brings you a bunch of lilies, you can now think, I know what I can do. Make an arrangement out of them. It's surprising how many flower heads you can get into a small amount of foam. Turn that round for you. So, nearly there with this design. Just going to finish off, fill in a few gaps with this bottle brush. Like that. Tiny more piece, tiny more piece of Iliadness. I think I'm going to stop there. That completes my next design for you. Thank you. Okay, but my next design is with this homemade pot. This is my favourite pot. It's actually one of my favourite colours actually. I always seem to go for purples and mauves. It's paper mache urn. It was a ready-made basic shape urn, and I've decorated it with these lovely octopus, I call them octopus tentacles. They're covered in knitting wool, and there's various fabrics on there that I've stiffened and painted and varnished. I won't go into too much detail. It's good fun and really messy to make, but messy is good fun. Anyway, we have a dish of foam on the top. This is actually the front. I've put some foliage in the back, so I know that's the back. And we'll get busy with this one. This is going to be a mixture of artificial plant material I've made, and some fresh. So you can mix the two together, especially when flowers are so expensive, or there's, say it's winter time, there's not so many flowers around. So this, I must show, is mulberry bark, which is a natural plant fibre, and I've stiffened that with fabric stiffener and painted it, and glued 2 barbecue sticks on the back, so it will go into this design. You can have that swirling upwards. If you're going to put something heavy into your design, make sure you've got 2 sticks. It won't swivel around in the floral foam. We'll have a bit of a curvy design with this one. They look like flags waving in the wind. That was the idea for this particular design. Let's tuck that one behind. There we go. So quite wild and random, this one. And another piece here. I always try and use, when I'm painting, acrylic paints or water-based paints, because they're quite safe and harmless and no nasty fumes from them. And they also dry really quickly, and when they're dry they're waterproof. I'm just going to mix in a few fresh leaves now. I've picked out some heuchera leaves, some purples and mauves to match the container. There are so many varieties of heuchera now, and there's virtually a colour for every occasion. I find that these lovely, the darker coloured leaves will hold up to a sunnier spot in the garden, and the paler varieties do tend to prefer a lot more shade. They will get scorched if they're too bright, if there's too much sunlight. So just tuck a few of those in, and they're such a beautiful colour, they do disappear into my container. Let's pop about there. I'm also going to add, a couple of leaves I've made. These are quite fun to make. I actually cut these. These are in a curtain, and I cut these out of a curtain and stiffened them with fabric stiffener. Then I've painted the back mauve, purple mauve, to match the pot, and put on a fake wire, a stem. And there's also a bit of sewing and some beads stitched on that as well. And of course the best thing is we can bend these in any shape we need. If only we could do that with a fresh leaf, that would be very useful, but that's not possible. And maybe one coming from the back. And bring that around, turn that around for you to see. I'm just going to put in a few of these beautiful leaves. This is Acer. I'm afraid I don't know what variety of Acer it is, but it's such a beautiful, soft, flowing stem. Nice and lightweight and wispy. Ideal if you want to put a bit of movement into a design but not make it too heavy. Almost looks like a fern. So as I said before, there's no reason why you can't put fresh and artificial plant material together. If you mix them carefully, you can't see the joins between the two. And a few coming out this side. And the lovely lime green contrasts with the dark purples and mauves. Let's have a piece coming up. Maybe another piece coming forwards. Turn it around for you to see. Now also on the purple mauve theme, I've got these couple of stems of, this is clematis, another variety of clematis. I'm afraid I'm not sure what variety it is. I believe it's a Montana type. And it tends to grow an awful lot after it's finished flowering. And I find the foliage conditions really well. Even these ends, the delicate ends, will survive quite happily in water. Let's have that one. Take it till it's too long. If in doubt, measure twice, cut it afterwards. Remember, you can't put it back on if you cut it off. I really need to get in a few focal flowers next so I can decide where the rest are going to go. So I'm going to pop in a few of these. I have spent a few hours and made these flowers. These are felt. I'm sure some of you have made felt from scratch, and they've been stiffened with fabric stiffener so that they're quite robust, and that helps keep them into shape. The stamens are made from the ready-made ones you can buy. They're the cake making stamens for decorating cakes, and I just had a little bit of paint splashed on there just to tie the colour in. So again, we can just tuck these in. But I've also made them in the style of a clematis flower. Let's bring that one deeper in, recess that, and we're just going to have one sort of peeking out to the side. The best thing with these bendy stems, you can sort of arrange them after you put them in. There we go, that's good. So we've got the main focal point in the centre. I can now put in the rest of the plant material. I've got a couple of fresh, beautiful lace cap hydrangea. And the colour is absolutely perfect for this. And push that deep in there. I'm going to tuck one in about here at the top. See that peeking through. I've got a couple of pieces of clematis. Got lots of clematis in the garden, and it does actually condition quite well. It will hold up, it will last 2 or 3 days in floral foam or orchid tubes, vase. It will last. It's quite surprising how well it lasts. You'll have to be careful with it because it does tend to tangle up you can't arrange this quickly with the clematis. Let's have that just hanging over the top. Like so. Okay. So we're nearly there with the design. I just show there's a little bit of a hole here, so we really must cover that in. We can't leave that bare. So I've got another acer, a different variety of acer, slightly bigger leaf, and just going to have a few snippets of that, just sort of peeking out, just to soften the whole design a little. Down. We don't really want to see any bare foam. That's a nice piece there. And I've got a sprig, stem of tree heather, nice and lightweight and delicate. It just gives another texture to the design, a soft texture, and it contrasts with all the more solid forms. It also lasts ever so well. It's a good laster, good foliage. Lasts really well in floral foam. Just check the back. That's better. I'm happier with that. I've filled in most of the back now, and I don't think there's any foam showing, so that completes my next design for you. Now, my next design for you is more of a sculpture. So this is actually a piece of rusty chain link fence I found. I went for a walk on the beach and discovered it. I thought, what a lovely shape it's got, such a beautiful form, and rust is such a lovely colour, so many different shades of colour. If you look closely at a colour, it's not just one colour, it's made out of lots of different shades. Beautiful. So I've fixed it onto this wooden stand. I've got a tiny little piece of foam on the back. This is the sort of design you can use up scraps, odds and ends. I've barely spent any money at all on this one. It's all from the garden. The base is made from scraps of wood. Just a bit of fun and a experiment. I've fixed on a few dried, trying to think what that, it will come back to me. Ah, thank you. Artichokes, and just tuck those in. So they're just some are wedged, some are wired in. We're going to start with one or two of my favourite foliage again. This the heuchera. As I mentioned, there's so many varieties of heuchera, and there's a colour for all occasions, and there's a rust peach, apricot and rust coloured. So I'm just going to bring some of those through. There. They don't look real, do they? The colours are absolutely fantastic. This design, because it only has a small amount of foam, it's more of an exhibition piece that you would just use, last a few days. You can wrap the foam and a little bit of cling film to help keep the moisture in, but it is quite tricky. Just one or two round there. I'm going to put in next, I've got a little bunch of sedum, alpine sedum, and I have actually wired the stems. They need a bit of support, they're quite soft, the stems, and they will actually last ever so well if there's not much moisture around. So they're going to be fine in this particular design. There we go. And I've cut some with the flower head on also. We'll just have this coming through around them. It did take a while to wire them, but it's absolutely worth it in the long run to save you time when you're putting the design together. And I'm just going to have these in a group. Turn that round for you to see. And one or two in here. It's absolutely fascinating. I find it fascinating when you have a look around the garden, have a closer look. So when you start to look closer, you see more foliages, flowers. You see different shapes, different forms, different colours that you can put together. So you probably look round the garden and think, I've got nothing to make a flower arrangement. But there'll always be something. You'll be surprised what you can find. So that's nearly all the sedum in place. That's a couple. So there. I've got this beautiful piece of sorbus, amazing colour, this berry. It's absolutely perfect for this design. So again, measure twice before you cut your stem. Don't go diving in with both feet, chop it down too short, then you find you can't use it. So you need to plan it. I'll just put that. See, I'm glad I cut it too long on purpose. It's best to cut it too long. Now I can cut it down a little shorter. If it's got a knobbly end on the end, just trim it down to make it go into the foam more easily. That's better because it was sticking out too far. And I've got one or two clematis heads which just lift the design slightly paler colour. It's got really sturdy stems. It's easier to push into the foam. I haven't got a lot of foam here, and there's not a lot of room to get them in because there's a wooden stand up the centre, so it needs a bit of careful planning. Just tuck one up the top there. I think we're almost there. I might tuck another leaf in down the bottom. Just try it. Yes. To give a bit of depth to the back. Put it in upside down. Like that. Of course I haven't hidden the back yet, so I'll just tuck a leaf on the back. You can use your leftovers on the back. You've got to bear in mind where your display is going to go. If it's going to go in front of a mirror, it will reflect the back, so you will need to make sure everywhere is hidden and finished nicely. 1 or 2 stems of, this is Hypericum, homegrown Hypericum berry, and I've picked off the leaves and the calyx so you just see the actual berry itself, and it's a lovely rust brown colour. I'll just tuck that in. I think I'm about there. Okay, I'm going to stop there. I mustn't put any more in this design. Just going to mop up the wet. There we go. And then there we have my rusty wire sculpture. Thank you. This is my one of my favourite stands. It's actually made from wire underneath. There's a coat hanger wire and a wooden block for the base to make it stable, and the rest is all textiles that I've made. It's lots of knitting yarn machined on, knitting yarn wrapped around the stems, and just a experiment. It was great fun to make. It did take a while, but I'm very pleased with it. And I've built in a base up the top to hold this tray of foam, and the back, this is the back, I've just filled it in with a little bit of acer, and quite unusual, very different. So let's see what happens. I've got a nice lot of foliage to put into this one. So the idea is it's going to be a tree canopy. It's got some fantastic fern. We'll put some of these in, quite rustic, and it will pick up on the texture of the tree trunk. So some of those coming up to the side. These ferns are polystitchum, and they do last really well in a design in foam. Lots of ferns won't condition, but most of the polystitchum ferns will last quite happily. I've also got some rubus. This is rubus tricolour. It's a ground cover. It grows very fast. You need quite a large garden to grow it in. It doesn't do much for the first year or two when you've planted it, then all of a sudden it will just go, and very often you'll have to cut it back hard because it grows so fast. And as you can see, this is in flower, and it does actually have fruits also. It looks as if it could be quite prickly, thorny, like a bramble, but it's very soft. Easy to use. My next foliage, this is Physocarpus Amber Jubilee, beautiful. And it also, it's a very fast growing shrub. And you can keep cutting from it. It keeps growing back. I don't have any trouble with it, apart from black fly. The black fly does like it, so you will have to spray it occasionally to keep it at bay. So I'm completely arranging this at random, but still radiating from the central point in the centre of the foam. A couple more pieces of Physocarpus. Don't forget to come out of the back. That's some more rubus tricolour. It's in the back. I've got one or two stems of Lonicera. This is Bagginson's Gold. You can normally keep this shrub clipped almost into a topiary, but this one has gone wild. It's lovely long straight stems. Very, very useful foliage to use. Now the inspiration for this design came from a visit actually to Wakehurst Place. Wakehurst Place is a garden in Sussex. It's also got the National Seed Bank and it is owned by Kew. And if you can find the rock walk, go for a lovely stroll through the rock walk and you'll see these beautiful yew trees growing on top of some beautiful stones, beautiful rocks, just like tentacles crawling over the rocks. Absolutely fascinating. Little piece more of Acer. Let's have that coming from there. Brilliant. Now, as it's a tree, I thought these would go quite nicely. These are apples, branch of apples. I'm going to have a few of those coming down. Bear in mind they're very heavy. So you can't really put these in, change the place. You've got to put them in, straight in, make a decision, put them in and leave them in place. There we go. So hopefully you can see those just peeking through here and there. Now, a colour that goes really well with green is white. So I've got a few stems of mixed flower here. There's some chrysanthemums, spray chrysanths, and I have a few roses, white roses. And one or two chrysanthemum blooms. They're quite large, but absolutely beautiful. These came from a mixed bunch from the supermarket. It's fantastic what you can find at the supermarket. Got 3 of these. But they're quite similar in size and form, so I'm going to have them at different places. So they're not quite so dominant. Now I can put in some roses, some white roses. Beautiful. We mustn't forget the back of the design, get some depth in there. And the side. This side. Maybe one coming down a little. One about there. Turn it around for you to see. So I tried to distribute the white through. Another rose or two. Again, don't forget the back of your design. I'm just going to finish off with a few pieces of this spray chrysanthemum. I just dot that through. Put the knife away, use the scissors. We have a stem coming forwards. Couple more in the front. Don't waste anything. A couple are dropped. Must put those in also. That completes my last design. I hope you've enjoyed watching. It's been great to see you, and hopefully we'll see you again next time. So I'll just turn around and show you my final design, and thank you for watching.